American soldiers. During World War II, soldiers of the United States were known for having some of the most complete and modern equipment on the battlefield. When an American infantryman entered combat, he carried not only a weapon, but an entire set of gear designed to help him survive and fight for long periods of time. The main weapon for many American soldiers was the famous M1 Garand. Unlike many bolt-action rifles used by other armies, the M1 Garand was a semi-automatic rifle. This allowed soldiers to fire much faster without manually cycling the bolt after every shot. Because of this advantage, American infantry units often had stronger and more consistent firepower during engagements. On their heads, American soldiers wore the M1 helmet, a steel helmet designed to protect against shrapnel and flying debris on the battlefield. Around their belts and gear harnesses, soldiers carried ammunition pouches, grenades, and essential survival equipment. A common grenade used by American troops was the Mk2 grenade, easily recognizable by its segmented outer shell. Many soldiers also carried the famous K-bar, a durable combat knife used for both fighting and survival tasks. Another major advantage for American troops was logistics. Thanks to the massive industrial power of the United States, soldiers often carried rations, medical kits, water canteens, and additional gear that allowed them to operate independently for extended periods. One of the most common field meals was the K-ration, a compact food package designed for soldiers in combat. All of these items together created a soldier who was well-equipped, well-supplied, and ready to fight in almost any condition during the war. German soldiers. During World War II, soldiers of Nazi Germany were known for their discipline and highly organized equipment system. German infantry gear was designed to be efficient, practical, and optimized for combat effectiveness. The standard rifle for many German soldiers was the Karabiner 98K, a bolt-action rifle known for its reliability and accuracy. While it did not fire as quickly as semi-automatic rifles like the M1 Garand, it was extremely dependable and capable of accurate shots at long distances. German soldiers also wore the iconic Stahlhelm. This helmet had a distinctive shape that provided additional protection around the sides of the head and neck. Its design became one of the most recognizable symbols of German soldiers during the war. Around their bodies, German troops carried a carefully arranged system of belts and shoulder straps that distributed the weight of their equipment evenly. On these belts were ammunition pouches, water bottles, gas mask containers, and small entrenching tools used for digging defensive positions. One of the most recognizable German grenades was the Stielhandgranate, often called the stick grenade because of its long wooden handle. This design allowed soldiers to throw the grenade farther than many other types used during the war. German infantry squads were also heavily centered around machine gun support, particularly the famous MG-42. Known for its incredibly high rate of fire, the MG-42 became one of the most feared weapons on the battlefield. Overall, German equipment reflected a military philosophy focused on efficiency, organization, and strong battlefield firepower. Soviet soldiers. On the Eastern Front of World War II, soldiers of the Soviet Union fought in some of the largest and most brutal battles in history. Because the Soviet Union needed to equip millions of soldiers quickly, their gear was often simpler compared to that of Western armies. One of the most common weapons carried by Soviet infantry was the Mosin Nagant rifle. This bolt-action rifle was famous for its rugged durability. It could continue functioning even in extremely harsh conditions such as mud, snow, and freezing temperatures. Soviet soldiers usually wore the SSH-40 helmet, a simple but strong steel helmet designed primarily to protect against shrapnel. Compared to other armies, Soviet troops often carried fewer personal items, which helped them move quickly across difficult terrain. A typical Soviet soldier carried ammunition pouches, a water bottle, and basic survival gear. Another common item was the F1 grenade, a fragmentation grenade widely used in defensive combat and urban warfare. Soviet military equipment emphasized simplicity and mass production. Factories across the country produced weapons and equipment in enormous numbers, ensuring that millions of soldiers could be armed despite the immense losses during the war. Although their equipment was often basic, the combination of durable weapons, massive production, and determined soldiers helped the Soviet Union become one of the decisive forces in the war. British soldiers. During World War II, soldiers of the United Kingdom were known for their balanced and reliable equipment. British military gear focused on practicality and durability, allowing soldiers to fight effectively in a wide range of environments, from the deserts of North Africa to the forests and cities of Europe. The standard rifle used by many British infantrymen was the Lee Enfield. This bolt-action rifle was famous for its smooth bolt mechanism, which allowed soldiers to fire very quickly compared to many other rifles of the time. Well-trained British soldiers could fire up to 15 aimed shots per minute, creating a surprisingly high rate of fire for a bolt-action weapon. On their heads, British troops wore the Brodie helmet, a steel helmet with a wide brim that looked almost like an upside-down bowl. Its design was particularly effective at protecting soldiers from falling debris and shrapnel during artillery bombardments, which were extremely common in the war. Around their bodies, British troops carried a carefully arranged system of belts and shoulder straps that distributed the weight of their equipment evenly. On these belts were ammunition pouches, water bottles, field tools, and grenades. One of the most widely used grenades was the Mills bomb, a classic fragmentation grenade that had already proven effective during earlier conflicts. Unlike some armies that emphasized large amounts of gear, British equipment was designed to provide exactly what a soldier needed without adding unnecessary weight. This approach allowed soldiers to stay mobile while still being well prepared for combat. Overall, British military equipment reflected a philosophy of reliability and efficiency. It might not have been the most technologically advanced gear in the war, but it was dependable and helped British soldiers operate effectively in many different theaters of World War II. Japanese soldiers, soldiers of Imperial Japan, had equipment that was quite different from many Western armies during World War II. Japanese infantry gear was typically lighter and simpler, designed for mobility in jungles, mountains, and island battlefields across the Pacific. The primary rifle carried by Japanese soldiers was the Arisaka Type 99, a bolt-action rifle known for its strong construction and reliability. Although it did not fire as rapidly as some semi-automatic rifles used by other nations, it was still a solid and dependable weapon. One of the defining features of Japanese infantry equipment was the use of the Type 30 bayonet. Japanese soldiers were trained extensively in bayonet combat, and the bayonet was often fixed to the rifle even while marching or preparing for battle. Close quarters combat played a significant role in Japanese military training. On their heads, soldiers wore the Type 90 helmet, a steel helmet that provided protection from shrapnel and battlefield debris. In addition to rifles and bayonets, Japanese troops carried ammunition pouches, water canteens, backpacks, and grenades such as the Type 97 grenade, which were commonly used in close-range combat. Japanese soldiers usually carried fewer personal items compared to American or British troops. This lighter equipment allowed them to move quickly through dense jungle terrain and conduct surprise attacks against enemy positions. However, what made Japanese soldiers particularly formidable was not just their equipment, but their intense training and determination. In many battles across the Pacific, Japanese forces launched aggressive attacks, sometimes known as banzai charges, attempting to overwhelm enemy positions through speed and courage. Their gear reflected this style of warfare: simple, mobile, and focused on close combat. French soldiers. At the beginning of World War II, soldiers of France were part of one of the largest armies in Europe. Although French military equipment still reflected many designs from earlier decades, their soldiers were still equipped with reliable weapons and protective gear suitable for large-scale warfare. One of the primary rifles used by French infantry was the MAS-36. This bolt-action rifle was designed to be simple, durable, and easy to manufacture. While it lacked some of the advanced features of other rifles used during the war, it was dependable and effective in combat. The MAS-36 was often paired with a long spike bayonet, allowing soldiers to quickly transition into close combat if necessary. French soldiers commonly wore the Adrian helmet, a helmet design that had already become famous during World War I. The Adrian helmet featured a distinctive crest along the top, which helped reinforce the structure and improve protection from shrapnel. Even though the design was older compared to some helmets used by other nations, it remained widely used by French troops. Along with their rifles and helmets, French soldiers carried ammunition pouches, water bottles, backpacks, and grenades, such as the M1 grenade. These items were essential for infantry fighting in trenches, defensive positions, and urban environments. After France was occupied in 1940, many French soldiers continued the fight under the Free French Forces led by Charles de Gaulle. These forces later fought alongside Allied troops and were gradually equipped with British and American weapons. Despite early setbacks, French soldiers continued to play an important role in the later stages of the war. Italian soldiers. During World War II, soldiers of the Kingdom of Italy fought on several fronts, including North Africa, the Mediterranean, and parts of Eastern Europe. Italian infantry equipment was generally lighter and simpler, reflecting both industrial limitations and the environments in which many battles took place. The standard rifle used by many Italian soldiers was the Carcano M91, a bolt-action rifle that had been in service for many years before the war. The Carcano was relatively easy to produce and maintain, making it suitable for arming large numbers of soldiers. However, it was sometimes considered less powerful compared to some other rifles used during the conflict. Italian soldiers typically wore the M33 helmet, a compact and lightweight steel helmet that provided protection from shrapnel and debris. This helmet became one of the most recognizable pieces of Italian military equipment during the war. In addition to their rifles, Italian troops carried ammunition pouches, water bottles, backpacks, and grenades such as the SRCM Mod 35 grenade. These items allowed infantry soldiers to fight effectively in both defensive and offensive situations. Many Italian units were also trained to operate in challenging environments such as mountainous terrain and desert battlefields. Because of this, their equipment was often kept relatively light to allow for greater mobility during long marches and difficult campaigns. Although Italian forces faced many challenges during the war, their soldiers fought in numerous battles across multiple continents, playing a significant role in the broader conflict of World War II.